The night my father came back, the clock on the wall had just struck 12. That sound still lives inside my chest.
Slow. Heavy.
Like a warning. Because 3 days earlier, we had buried him with our own hands. We watched the soil cover the coffin. We cried until our throats burned. We said the final prayers. We believed, with every part of our broken hearts, that our father was gone forever. My name is Daniel, and this story is about my family, our grief, and the fear that followed us home after the funeral. It's a story about love, loss, and a midnight knock that changed everything. Even now, when I tell it, my hands shake. Not because I don't remember clearly, but because I remember too well. My father, Samuel Carter, was a strong man. Not loud, not rich, not famous. Just strong in the way that mattered. He worked with his hands, woke up before sunrise, and made sure his children never slept hungry. To us, he was everything. When my mother died years ago, he became both parents at once. He smiled through pain. He carried burdens he never talked about. And when he fell sick, he did it quietly, like he didn't want to disturb anyone. The doctors said it was his heart. They said it happened fast. One moment he was sitting on the edge of the bed, asking for water, and the next moment he was gone.
Just like that.
No last words.
No goodbye.
Just silence where his voice used to be. I remember screaming his name. I remember my sister dropping to the floor. I remember my younger brother standing frozen, as if his body refused to believe what his eyes were seeing. The days that followed felt unreal. Neighbors came and went. People brought food we couldn't taste. They said words like, "Stay strong," and "He's in a better place," but none of it reached us. Our house felt empty, even when it was full of people. His shoes were still by the door. His jacket still hung behind it. Every corner of that house carried him. The burial day arrived too quickly. The sky was gray, heavy with clouds, like it knew what we were feeling. We followed the coffin to the cemetery, our hearts dragging behind us. I watched as they lowered my father into the ground. I watched as dirt fell on the wood, one shovel at a time. Each sound felt like a hammer striking my chest. When it was over, we stood there, holding each other, unable to move. It felt wrong to leave him alone there. It felt wrong to go back to a house where his voice no longer lived. That night, none of us slept. Grief sat with us, thick and heavy. Every small sound made us jump. The wind against the windows. The creak of the old floorboards. Our house had always made noises, but now every sound felt different. Darker. Louder. As if the house itself was aware of what we had lost. By the third night, exhaustion finally pulled us into sleep. Or, at least something close to it. I was lying on my bed, staring at the ceiling, when I heard it. A knock. At first, I thought I was dreaming. The kind of dream where sounds feel real. But then it came again.
Slow.
Firm. 3 knocks on the front door. My heart began to race. No one visits at midnight. Not in our neighborhood. Not after a funeral. I sat up, listening. The house was silent. Too silent. Then my sister's door creaked open. I could hear her whisper my name, her voice shaking. Before I could answer, the knock came again. Louder this time. My brother started crying from his room. Not loud, just small broken sounds. Fear has a way of making even breathing feel dangerous. I stood up, my legs weak, and stepped into the hallway. My sister was there, her face pale, her eyes wide. We didn't speak. We didn't need to. We both knew something was wrong. The knock came a 4th time. "Who is it?" I asked, my voice barely holding together. There was a pause. Long enough for my heart to beat 100 times. Then we heard a voice. It was low, familiar, tired. "Open the door," the voice said. "It's cold." I felt the world tilt. My sister grabbed my arm so hard it hurt. Because that voice belonged to our father. My mind screamed that it wasn't possible. We buried him. We saw his coffin. We stood at his grave. Dead men do not knock on doors at midnight. Dead men do not ask to be let in. But the voice spoke again. "Please," it said softly. "It's me." My brother ran into the hallway, tears streaming down his face. "Daddy," he whispered, hope and terror mixed together. Every instinct told me not to move, to run,
To hide.
to pretend we weren't home. But another part of me, the part that missed him so much it hurt to breathe, wanted to open that door without thinking. Wanted to believe in a miracle. Wanted my father back. I stepped closer to the door. My hand hovered inches from the lock. My sister shook her head, silently begging me to stop. The knocking stopped. For a moment, there was nothing. Then something else happened. We heard footsteps.
Slow. Heavy.
Walking away from the door, and then around the side of the house. That's when we realized something was terribly wrong. Because whatever was outside didn't leave. It was still there. Moving. Waiting. And standing in that dark hallway, listening to those footsteps circle our home, I knew one thing for sure. We buried our father. But whatever came back at midnight might not be him. The footsteps moved slowly, dragging slightly, like whoever was outside was tired or hurt. I held my breath, counting each step as it passed beneath the window. My sister pulled my brother close, covering his mouth so his quiet sobs wouldn't give us away. The house felt smaller with every second, like the walls were leaning in to listen.
We didn't turn on the lights. We didn't speak.
We just stood there, frozen, waiting for the sound to fade. But it didn't. The footsteps stopped right outside my father's old bedroom window. That was the room he slept in every night for years. That was the room he died in. The window creaked softly, not opening, just reacting to someone standing too close. I felt my stomach twist. My sister shook her head again, tears sliding down her cheeks. I could tell she was thinking the same thing I was thinking. If this was really our father, why didn't he just come inside? Why walk around the house like a stranger? After a long moment, the footsteps moved again. This time, they went toward the backyard. Then, finally, the sound faded into the night. No more knocking. No voice. Just silence. We stood there until our legs ached. When we were sure the sounds were gone, we slowly backed away from the door and locked it. Then we locked it again just to be sure. We checked every window, every latch, every corner of the house. Nothing was broken. Nothing was forced. It was as if whoever had been outside never touched anything at all. None of us slept after that. We sat together in the living room until the sun came up, the TV playing quietly even though no one was watching. Morning light filled the house, but it didn't bring comfort. It only made the night feel more real. When the sun was fully up, my brother finally spoke. Why didn't Daddy come inside? His voice was small, confused, innocent in a way that broke my heart. I didn't have an answer. My sister didn't either. So I said the only thing I could. Maybe it wasn't him. Saying those words out loud made the room feel cold. My sister looked at me sharply. Then who is it? She asked. That question stayed with us all day. Later that morning, we went to the cemetery. None of us said it, but we were all thinking the same thing. We needed to see the grave. We needed proof. The drive felt longer than usual, every bump in the road making my chest tighten. The cemetery was quiet, peaceful in a way that felt wrong after what we experienced. We stood in front of my father's grave, staring down at the fresh soil. The flowers were still there. The ground looked untouched. No signs of digging. No footprints. Nothing strange. Everything looked exactly the way it should have looked. I felt a strange mix of relief and fear. Relief because the grave hadn't been disturbed. Fear because that meant whatever we heard at midnight didn't come from there.
Or worse, it didn't need to.
As we turned to leave, an old man approached us. He was one of the caretakers, someone I had seen around before but never spoken to. He looked at us for a moment, then at the grave, then back at us again. "You're Samuel's children," he said quietly. I nodded. He hesitated, like he wasn't sure if he should speak. Then he did anyway. "Your father used to come here sometimes," he said. "Late evenings. Alone." My sister frowned. "Why?" she asked. The old man shrugged. Didn't say. He'd just sit.
Stare.
Like he was waiting for something. That didn't make sense. My father never mentioned coming here. He never talked about fears or secrets. Or at least we thought he didn't. On the way home, memories started to feel different. Small things stood out that never had before. The way my father sometimes woke up in the middle of the night, sitting quietly in the dark. The way he locked the doors twice before bed. The way he would sometimes stare at us with an expression I couldn't quite understand, like he wanted to say something but couldn't find the words. That night, we stayed awake again. All the lights were on this time. Every door locked. We told ourselves it was just fear playing tricks on us. Grief does strange things to the mind. But deep down, none of us truly believed that. Around midnight, the power went out. The house dropped into darkness instantly. My sister gasped. My brother grabbed my arm. Outside, the streetlights were still on. Other houses still had lights. It was just us. Then came the smell. Earth. Damp soil. The same smell that clung to us after the burial. The same smell that stayed on our clothes no matter how much we washed them. It filled the living room, thick and unmistakable. "I smell Daddy," my brother whispered. My heart started pounding so hard I thought I might pass out. I grabbed my phone and turned on the flashlight. The beam shook as I scanned the room. Nothing was there. No one. Just us. Then we heard it. A chair scraping gently across the floor. The sound came from the kitchen. We stood still listening. The scraping stopped. Something else replaced it. Breathing. Slow and uneven. Too close. I took a step forward without thinking, my mind screaming at my body to stop, but my feet kept moving. The beam of light slid across the doorway. The kitchen was empty, but the back door was unlocked. We didn't unlock it. My sister started crying quietly, repeating, "This isn't real. This isn't real." I wanted to believe her. I wanted to believe there was a simple explanation. But nothing about this felt simple. We locked the door again and pushed a chair against it. The smell faded slowly. The power came back an hour later, like nothing had happened. But the feeling stayed. That heavy sense of being watched. Of not being alone. Over the next few days, strange things kept happening. My father's radio turned on by itself, playing his favorite old songs. His chair was sometimes pulled out, as if someone had just stood up from it. Footprints appeared in the dirt outside the house, leading nowhere. And every night, at exactly midnight, we heard movement outside. Never knocking again. Just walking. Circling. Waiting. We started to wonder if we truly knew our father at all. If there was something he had hidden from us. Something buried deeper than his body. Because whatever was coming back to our house at night didn't feel like a ghost. And it didn't feel like a stranger. It felt like someone who knew us. Someone who had unfinished business. And as the nights grew darker and the footsteps grew closer, one terrifying thought refused to leave my mind. What if the real mystery wasn't how our father came back, but why he was never meant to leave? After a week of sleepless nights, our house no longer felt like home. It felt like a place that remembered us too well. Every corner seemed to watch. Every shadow felt heavy with meaning. We moved quietly now, like guests afraid of offending something unseen. My brother stopped sleeping in his room and stayed on the couch where he could see us. My sister barely spoke. And me? I started paying attention to things I had ignored my whole life. I began going through my father's belongings, not because I wanted to, but because I felt pulled to. His old drawers, his toolbox, the box under his bed, we were never allowed to touch. At first, it was just normal things. Old papers, receipts, photos from years ago. But then I found a small notebook tucked behind a loose board in his closet. It wasn't a diary. There were no dates. Just short lines written in my father's handwriting. Some pages were blank. Others had sentences that didn't make sense at first. Still watching. Not ready yet. They don't need to know. My throat tightened as I read. Who was watching? What wasn't ready? And who was they? I didn't show the notebook to my sister right away. Part of me wanted to protect her. Part of me wanted to understand it alone. That night, I sat in my father's chair, holding the notebook, listening to the house breathe. At midnight, right on time, the footsteps returned. This time, they stopped closer to the front door than ever before. I didn't move.
I didn't speak.
I just listened. The steps paused, like whoever was outside knew I was awake. Then came something new. A soft tapping on the wall. Not knocking. Tapping. Slow and deliberate. 3 taps. A pause. Then 3 more. My phone buzzed in my hand. A message from my sister, even though she was in the next room. Do you hear that? I typed back with shaking fingers. Yes. The tapping stopped. The footsteps moved away. And just like every other night, silence returned. But this time, something felt different. He felt closer. More patient. Like he was waiting for us to catch up. The next morning, my sister finally broke. She slammed her cup down on the table, tears in her eyes. We can't keep pretending this isn't happening, she said. Something is coming here, every night. Something that sounds like him, smells like him, knows our house. I showed her the notebook. She read it slowly, her face changing with every line. Why didn't he tell us? She whispered. I don't think he wanted to scare us, I said. Or maybe he was scared himself. We decided to talk to people who knew him before we did. Old friends, neighbors, anyone who might have seen a side of our father we didn't. Most of them said the same thing. He was kind, quiet, reliable. But one woman, Mrs. Harris from 2 streets over, hesitated when we asked. Your father helped me once, she said. Years ago. Late at night. Helped how? We asked. He said someone was following him, she replied. That they had been for a long time. My sister and I exchanged a look. Mrs. Harris leaned closer. He asked if he could sit in my house until morning. Said he didn't feel safe being alone. That didn't sound like the father we knew. Strong. Fearless. Always in control. But the pieces were starting to fit together in a way we didn't like. That night, my brother asked a question that made my blood run cold. What if Daddy never left, he said. What if he just changed? No one answered him. The activity around the house grew stronger. Objects moved when we weren't looking. Doors we locked were found slightly open. And once, just once, I heard my name whispered from the hallway in my father's voice. I didn't answer. I didn't turn around. I just stood there, heart racing, knowing that responding might change everything. I started having dreams. In them, my father stood at the edge of the cemetery, not inside it. He looked tired.
Not angry. Not scary. Just tired.
And every time I tried to reach him, something unseen pulled him back into the darkness. My sister began researching late at night, reading old local stories and forums. She found mentions of people returning to places they loved after death. Not as spirits, but as echoes. Impressions tied to unfinished promises. Unspoken truths. If Dad is tied to something, she said, maybe it's us. That idea scared me more than anything else. One evening, the caretaker from the cemetery came to our door. In daylight. He looked nervous. I shouldn't be here, he said. But I thought you should know. I saw someone standing near Samuel's grave last night. My chest tightened. Who? I asked. He shook his head. Couldn't see his face. But he was standing on the path. Not the grave itself. Like he wasn't allowed to step closer. That night, the footsteps didn't circle the house. They stopped at the front door. We sat together in the living room, lights on, hearts pounding. The doorknob turned slowly. Just a little. Then stopped. A familiar sigh came from the other side. Not threatening. Just sad. I'm still here, my father's voice said quietly. I just need time. Tears streamed down my sister's face. My brother stood up, taking a step toward the door. I grabbed him, pulling him back. Because as much as my heart wanted to believe, my mind told me something wasn't right. Whatever was outside wasn't forcing its way in. It was waiting for permission. And the longer we waited, the more I feared that opening that door wouldn't bring our father back. It would take something from us instead. The waiting became worse than the fear. Every second stretched, heavy and tight, like the air itself was holding its breath. After that night at the door, nothing felt normal anymore. My brother jumped at every sound. My sister barely slept. and I felt like I was standing on the edge of something deep and dark, knowing one wrong step would pull us all in. The voice didn't return the next night.
Or the one after that.
No footsteps. No smells. No whispers. The silence felt unnatural, like the calm before a storm. We didn't talk about it much, but all three of us felt it. Whatever was happening wasn't over. It was preparing. On the fourth night, the radio turned on by itself again. Not loud. Just enough to be noticed. The same song my father used to hum while fixing things around the house. I stood frozen in the doorway, listening. The volume slowly increased, like someone was turning the knob with careful fingers. Then it stopped suddenly. "I don't like this," my sister said behind me. "It feels like he's trying to remind us of something." That same evening, I found something else in my father's belongings. Hidden inside an old coat pocket, a folded paper, worn and soft from being handled too many times. It was a map. Our neighborhood, roughly sketched, with one place circled in red. An old abandoned house near the edge of town. A place kids used to dare each other to go near, but never inside. My sister stared at it. "Why would he keep this?" "I don't know," I said. "But I think it's connected." We didn't go there. Not yet. Fear kept us in place. Or maybe instinct. Because deep down, we knew once we stepped into that place, things would change. And there might be no going back. That night, the power went out again. This time, the entire street went dark. No streetlights. No houses glowing. Just darkness pressing in from all sides. The moon was hidden behind clouds, and the silence felt loud. Then came the knock. Not loud. Not urgent. Gentle. My brother whimpered.
My sister squeezed my hand.
The knock came again. Same rhythm as before. 3 slow taps. I stood up, my heart pounding so hard it made my ears ring. "What do you want?" I called out. There was a pause. Then the voice answered.
"Come."
Familiar. "You found it," my father said. "Didn't you?" My blood ran cold. "Found what?" I asked, even though I already knew. "The place," he replied. "The reason." My sister shook her head violently, mouthing, "Don't talk to it." But I couldn't stop. "Why are you here?" I asked. Another pause. Longer this time. When he spoke again, his voice sounded strained, like it was coming from far away. "Because I didn't finish," he said. "And now it's waking up." A loud thump hit the side of the house, making us all scream. The walls creaked. The knocking stopped. Footsteps moved quickly this time, not slow and tired like before.
Fast.
Urgent. My brother cried openly now. "Please make it stop," he begged. We huddled together on the floor, the darkness wrapping around us. Outside, something brushed against the windows. Not hitting them, just touching, like fingers dragging lightly across the glass. Then we heard another sound. A second set of footsteps. My heart nearly stopped. They were different. Heavier. More forceful. Whatever was outside wasn't alone anymore. The radio burst on again, loud this time, filling the house with noise. I covered my ears, panic rising. Over the sound, I heard my father's voice one last time that night. "Don't open the door," he said. "Not yet." And then everything went quiet. The power returned minutes later, but none of us moved. We sat there until morning light crept through the windows. When we finally looked outside, the yard was torn up. Footprints everywhere. Not just one path. Many. All leading toward the road. Toward the old house marked on the map. That day, the caretaker came again. He looked pale. "The grave is changing," he said quietly. "The soil is warm." That night, my dreams changed. I saw the old house clearly. The doors open. The inside dark and breathing. I saw my father standing at the edge, holding something back with all his strength. Something that wanted out. I woke up screaming. My sister was already awake.
"We have to go there," she said.
"Don't we?" I didn't answer, but we both knew the truth. Whatever was tied to our father wasn't finished with us. And it wasn't going to wait forever. At exactly midnight, our front door opened by itself. No force. No sound of breaking locks. Just a slow, careful opening. The smell of earth filled the house again. And from the darkness beyond the doorway, a shadow stretched across the floor, stopping inches from our feet. My father's voice whispered from the darkness, closer than ever before. "It's almost time," he said. And in that moment, standing face to face with the unknown, I realized something terrifying. We weren't being haunted. We were being prepared. The door stayed open, frozen in that slow, careful position, like it was waiting for us to decide something. None of us moved. My brother clutched my shirt so tightly his knuckles turned white. My sister whispered my name, but I couldn't look at her. My eyes were locked on the dark space beyond the doorway, on the shadow that stretched across our floor like it belonged there. Then the shadow pulled back. The door closed on its own.
Gently.
No slam. No anger. Just a quiet click as the lock turned into place. We stood there shaking, trying to understand what had just happened. My sister was the first to speak.
"He could have come in," she said.
Whatever that was, it chose not to. That thought scared me more than if the door had been forced open. Choice meant intention. It meant control. We didn't sleep that night. At sunrise, we packed a small bag and decided to go to the old house on the map. Not because we were brave, but because doing nothing felt worse. It felt like waiting for something bad to happen instead of facing it. The abandoned house sat at the edge of town, surrounded by dead grass and broken fencing. It looked smaller than I remembered, but heavier somehow, like it carried weight you couldn't see. Windows were boarded up, but one board hung loose, creaking softly in the wind. The front door was shut but not locked. As we stood there, my brother tugged on my sleeve. "Daddy was here," he said quietly. "How do you know?" my sister asked. He pointed to the dirt. Footprints. Familiar ones. The same worn pattern from my father's work boots, leading straight to the door. My chest tightened. "He didn't just mark this place," I said. "He was coming here." Inside, the air was stale and cold. The smell of damp wood and soil hit us immediately. The house felt empty, but not abandoned, like something had stepped out recently and planned to come back. Old furniture sat covered in sheets. The walls were marked with faded lines and symbols I didn't recognize. And on the floor, in the center of the main room, was a circle drawn in ash. My sister's voice trembled. "What did he do here?" Before I could answer, we heard movement upstairs. A slow drag, followed by a pause. Then another. Not rushed. Not hiding. "Dad," my brother called out without thinking. The sound stopped. Then we heard a voice, but it wasn't my father's. It was rougher. Lower. Like someone speaking through a tight chest. "You shouldn't have brought the child." We froze. "Who are you?" I asked, my voice barely steady. A laugh echoed from above, dry and humorless. "Someone your father made a promise to," the voice replied. "And failed to keep." The stairs creaked as something shifted its weight. I pulled my brother behind me, my heart racing. "Where is he?" my sister demanded. Another pause. Then, softly, almost thoughtfully, the voice said, holding the door closed. "For now." That's when it hit me. The second truth. The one my mind didn't want to accept. My father wasn't the thing trying to get inside our home. He was the thing standing in the way. The air felt heavier after that, like the house itself reacted to the realization. The voice continued, calmer now. "He thought death would end his responsibility," it said. "But some debts don't disappear when the heart stops." "What debt?" I asked. The floor above us creaked again, closer to the stairs. "A choice," the voice answered. "A long time ago, he chose to lock something away instead of destroying it. He chose to protect his family instead of the town." My sister shook her head. "That doesn't make sense." "It will," the voice said, "when he can't hold on anymore." We backed toward the door slowly, every instinct screaming at us to leave. As soon as we stepped outside, the door slammed shut behind us, the sound echoing across the empty land. That night, everything changed. The footsteps returned, but they were different now. Louder. Heavier. They didn't circle the house anymore. They paced back and forth, like something impatient. At midnight, the whispering began. Not just my father's voice now, but others layered beneath it. Low murmurs that made my skin crawl. Then my father's voice broke through again.
Clear.
Urgent. You have to listen to me, he said. I don't have much time. Where are you? My sister cried. Between, he replied. And it's getting harder to stay. The walls shook suddenly, just for a second. A picture fell off the wall, the glass shattering. My brother screamed. I pulled him close, my heart pounding. What happens if you stop? I asked. There was a long silence. Then my father answered quietly. Then it comes home. The house groaned like it was under pressure. Outside, the footsteps multiplied. More than before. The caretaker called later that night, his voice shaking. Something is wrong, he said. The grave, it's empty. My blood ran cold. What do you mean empty?
I mean the coffin is still there, he said.
But whatever was holding it down is gone. At exactly midnight, the lights flickered. The radio turned on again, playing static instead of music. Through the noise, a new voice pushed forward. Louder. Closer.
He's weakening, it said.
And so are you. The front door handle began to turn.
Slowly. Steadily.
This time, it didn't stop. My father's voice shouted over the noise, full of fear and desperation. Don't let it in, he yelled. No matter what you hear. No matter who it sounds like. The door creaked open an inch. And from the darkness beyond, a voice whispered perfectly, lovingly, using the tone my father used when we were children. Open the door, it said. I'm ready to come home. The door creaked wider, the wood groaning like it was tired of holding back what pressed against it. My sister screamed for me to stop it. My brother cried my name, but my body felt locked in place. The voice outside sounded perfect.
Warm.
Loving. Exactly like our father when he tucked us into bed as kids. For one terrifying second, I almost believed him. Then I remembered the warning. No matter who it sounds like. I slammed my shoulder into the door, forcing it shut just as something heavy hit from the other side. The impact rattled the frame, shaking the entire house. Pictures fell. The lights burst and died, plunging us into darkness. My sister grabbed a flashlight, her hands shaking so badly the beam danced across the walls. Outside, the voice changed. It dropped the softness, dropped the care. You're making this harder, it said, anger slipping through. He can't hold forever. My father's voice cut in, strained and weak but real. Now, he gasped. You have to go now. Go where? I shouted. The house, he said. The place. It's the only way.
We didn't argue.
We ran. The three of us burst out the back door and into the night, the smell of earth thick in the air. The footsteps followed us, fast and furious now, tearing through the yard. We didn't look back. We didn't stop. We ran until our lungs burned, until the old abandoned house rose out of the darkness ahead of us. The front door was open. Inside, the air felt alive. The ash circle on the floor glowed faintly, pulsing like a heartbeat. The walls shook as the door slammed behind us. My brother screamed as the temperature dropped suddenly, his breath fogging the air. Stand in the circle. My father's voice echoed, coming from everywhere and nowhere. All of you. What about you? My sister cried. A pause. Then softly, this is how I finish. The shadow poured in from the walls, stretching and twisting, filling the room. It wasn't a shape anymore. It was a presence. Heavy.
Hungry.
Furious. It pushed against the circle, testing it, snarling in a voice that sounded like 100 whispers at once. You lied to them, it hissed. You told them you died. I did, my father replied. And for the first time I saw him. He stood at the edge of the circle, faint and flickering, like a reflection on water. He looked younger somehow, stronger, but his eyes were tired in a way I had never seen before. I promised I'd protect them, he said. I just didn't know it would cost this much. The shadow lunged. The circle flared bright, throwing it back. The house shook violently, dust raining from the ceiling. My brother clung to me, sobbing. My sister whispered prayers under her breath. "What do we do?" I shouted. "You let me go," my father said. The words hit harder than anything else that night. "I tied myself to it," he continued. "Kept it locked between places. That's why it followed me. That's why it came home. But if I stay, it will always find you." The shadow screamed, a sound that rattled my bones. "You belong to me," it roared. "You made the deal." My father turned to us, his voice breaking. "I did it so you could live." The circle began to crack. "There's one more way," he said quickly. "But you won't like it." "What?" my sister cried. "You have to choose," he said. "Me or it." The shadow laughed. "They'll never let you go." I looked at my father, at the man who raised us, protected us, loved us. I felt my heart tear in two. "I'm sorry," I whispered. He smiled. The same smile he used when things were hard, but he didn't want us to be afraid. "I know," he said. The circle shattered in a burst of light. Wind exploded through the room, knocking us off our feet. The shadow rushed forward, colliding with my father in a blinding flash. The house screamed. The ground shook. And then, silence. When I opened my eyes, the house was still. Empty. The ash was gone. The air felt normal. Heavy but quiet. My father was gone. So was the shadow. We stumbled outside as dawn began to break. The house behind us looked ordinary again. Old. Empty. Like it had always been. No glow. No movement. No sound. Days passed. Then weeks. The footsteps never returned. The house felt like ours again. The air was lighter. My brother slept through the night. My sister laughed for the first time since the funeral. We visited the grave together, standing quietly, feeling both loss and peace. We thought it was over, until one evening, as I was cleaning out the last of my father's things, I found a final note tucked inside the notebook. One page I hadn't seen before. It read, "If you're reading this, it means I was wrong. And if I was wrong, it means you're not alone." My stomach dropped. That night, at exactly midnight, my phone buzzed. A notification from a number I didn't recognize. One simple message. "I'm still holding the door." And in the quiet that followed, I realized the final truth. We didn't bury our father. We buried his body. And somewhere between this world and the next, he was still standing watch, waiting for the moment someone else would come knocking. The message stayed on my phone screen for a long time before it finally faded. I didn't reply. I didn't know how. Part of me wanted to throw the phone across the room, pretend I never saw it. Another part felt strangely calm. Not peaceful exactly, but settled. Like something that had been loose inside me finally found its place. I didn't tell my sister or my brother right away. Not because I didn't trust them, but because I needed time to understand it myself. My father wasn't trapped anymore. That much I felt deep down. Whatever he had been holding back was gone. Destroyed or sealed away where it could never reach us again. What remained wasn't a threat. It was him. Or, at least the part of him that never stopped being our father. The night stayed quiet after that. No footsteps. No whispers. No smells of earth. The house returned to its old sounds, the soft ticking clock, the hum of the refrigerator, the creak of floorboards that no longer made our hearts race. Midnight came and went like any other hour. A week later, I finally showed my sister the message. She read it twice, then sat down slowly. She didn't cry. She didn't panic. She just nodded, like she already knew. "He always said he'd never leave us unprotected," she said softly. My brother asked if Daddy was a ghost now. I told him no. I told him our father was at rest, but love doesn't always disappear when a body does. Sometimes it stays behind in quieter ways. Ways that don't knock on doors or whisper in the dark. That answer seemed to comfort him. We went back to the abandoned house one last time in daylight. It looked completely ordinary now. Empty. No symbols. No ash. No heaviness in the air. Just a forgotten building slowly falling apart with age. Whatever had been tied to that place was gone. The circle had done its job. So had our father. The caretaker later confirmed the grave had returned to normal.
Cool soil.
No strange warmth. No disturbances. The cemetery felt peaceful again. Closed, in a way it hadn't been before. That helped more than I expected. Life didn't suddenly become easy. Grief doesn't vanish just because answers appear. We still missed him every day. There were moments when I reached for my phone to call him before remembering I couldn't. Moments when my sister caught herself setting aside food for him at dinner. Moments when my brother ran to the door after school, forgetting who wouldn't be there anymore. But those moments hurt less over time. What stayed with us wasn't fear anymore. It was understanding. My father had made a hard choice long before we knew about it. He protected his family. He carried something dangerous, so we wouldn't have to. And in the end, he finished what he started. Not by haunting us, but by letting go. Months passed.
Seasons changed.
Our house filled with laughter again. The heaviness lifted. Midnight became just another hour on the clock. One night, long after everything had settled, the radio turned on by itself again. My heart jumped, but only for a second. The song that played was soft and familiar. One my father loved. It played all the way through, then turned off. No static. No voices. No fear. Just music. I smiled. I think that was his way of saying goodbye. Or maybe hello. Or maybe just reminding us that he was still proud. I never received another message. I didn't need to. The door he was holding wasn't ours anymore. Whatever existed beyond it wasn't meant for us to face. That was his final gift. Now, when people ask me if I believe in ghosts, I tell them this. Not everything that stays behind is meant to scare you. Some things stay because they love you. Some things stay until they're sure you're safe. We buried our father believing that was the end of him. But the truth is, we didn't lose him that night. We learned who he really was. And, because of that, we learned something else too. Love doesn't always let go when the grave is filled. Sometimes it stands watch. And then, when the danger has passed, it finally rests.